In the world of cinema, few franchises have captured the raw intensity of survival and rebellion like Mad Max. At the heart of it all is George Miller, a filmmaker whose vision turned a dystopian wasteland into one of the most iconic cinematic universes ever created. From its humble beginnings in 1979 to the high-octane spectacle of Fury Road in 2015, Miller's relentless pursuit of authenticity has redefined the action genre. And now, with Furiosa, the prequel to Fury Road, we're once again diving into the chaos, this time uncovering the origins of one of the most compelling characters in the series.
Represent the characters in the same way that costume and hair and weapons and all the artifacts they carry. They have to be very character-driven.
But before we can get to the heart of Furiosa's story, let's explore the machinery, the vehicles that bring the Mad Max universe to life. These aren't just cars or trucks, they're characters in their own right. They're a blend of brutal design, unmatched creativity, and engineering genius. In Furiosa, just like in Fury Road, the vehicles are central to the storytelling. George Miller has always viewed the cars as extensions of the characters who drive them. Each one tells a story, reflecting the harshness of the wasteland and the survival instincts of those who inhabit it. Production designer Colin Gibson, the mastermind behind the jaw-dropping vehicle designs of Fury Road, returned for Furiosa with the same level of ingenuity. Gibson has described his work on these vehicles as creating Frankenstein monsters.
Talking with Colin Gibson, the wonderful production designer, one of the organising ideas in the design of the film is that everything must be made from found objects repurposed. There's no manufacture of anything new.
If something is to survive, it has to have an innate worth. It can be mechanical wonder, it can be structure, it can just be that this is the best way to kill the bastard who wants to kill you. But that finding something and treasuring it gave rise to stockpiles of things we could use, and then tried our best to use them so out of context they give you a little arresting jolt. This is the salvage artist team. A lot of the repurposed objects, weaponry, hand props, everything is basically made here. George wanted upwards of 3,000 motorbikes in this locust plague. The bikes became a much more interesting design problem. There seems to be a lot less we can do with them. It's the sheer volume of motorbikes. We expect to do around 160, of which there's probably 100 that are separate characters. Because of that, we broke the motorbikes up into different tribal groups. Obviously, our biker group of banditry and brotherhood, they were obviously a lot of heavier Harleys, Hogs. The preppers, the people whose paranoia was actually proven to be not such a bad idea. The police, prison guards, and the prisoners themselves, who funnily still hang together, and they still have the weaponry, the gear. The mortifiers, basically we envisaged as the descendants of an SAS group who perhaps had escaped the last great trench warfare battle of the eastern seaboard. There you go. The happy clappers who had rushed to the desert, waiting for the rapture after the rupture. The Rubillies, our inbred redneck friends, the mutations that had built over generations, which were fanned a little by the radioactive dust blowing in from the coast, gave us a group who had both resilience and a certain nastiness.
The cars are cobbled together from scraps of the old world, from remnants of our past. In fact, Gibson once said, "We create vehicles like we're blacksmiths of a dying world." That philosophy carried through to the designs of Furiosa, where over 100 unique vehicles were built from scratch to fit into the brutal, unforgiving landscape. Each vehicle in Furiosa serves a narrative purpose. For example, Furiosa's vehicle, a war rig, in its early stages, reveals her connection to survival and rebellion.
What a lovely
The war rig in Fury Road, though it was a beast somewhere between hot rod and tractor, was towards the tail end of wonderment. This time round, George thought it would be good to make a shinier statement, more Louis XIV, more Sun King.
In story terms, it's a much younger version.
It's the Wasteland equivalent of building some magnificent spacecraft that's going to take us to Mars or beyond.
The intakes, the exhausts, the manifolds, into the air filter, these are all basically handmade. Sydney at the moment is awash with that are building tunnels under the harbour. So the Bommy knocker takes its form from one of those, but it's also a mace, chains and ball, even a bowling ball. And we've made an advertisement for him to drag through the wasteland, proclaiming his greatness.
For the side of the war rig, it's incredible. It's so beautiful.
We worked a system of carving that story in a series of curved sand moulds. Basically, it's a three-dimensional cutout that then is cast in cast steel, and then these freezers were mounted onto the curved body of the tanker and then polished within an inch of their lives.
Other vehicles, like the ones used by Dementus, the warlord played by Chris Hemsworth, are adorned with menacing details that convey dominance and chaos.
To take a Rotax 7-cylinder plane engine, turn sideways, mount in between the two big wheels and fabricate a motorbike around it.
At some point, Colin showed me some footage, a chase between motorbike chariots. And it really evoked the Chariot race from William Wyler's Ben-Hur, one of the classic scenes, let's call it action scenes of cinema.
So over time, the bike transforms as he does, as he becomes more regal.
Inside of a vehicle or a truck, you have roll cages, you have helmets, you have, the best protection. When you come to a motorcycle, you're totally exposed.
My dad used to race bikes when he was younger as we got a bit older, and then we started getting bikes, a few road bikes and dirt bikes. That was how I saw the first Mad Max film. My dad threw the telly on and said, have a look at this.
The design process for these vehicles often begins with scavenging real-world cars and reimagining them for the wasteland. Colin Gibson and his team stripped vehicles down to their skeletons and rebuilt them, often merging several cars into one. A family sedan might be fused with a semi-truck, then covered in barbed wire and metal spikes. The goal was always to make them look functional, yet feral, like they've been surviving for decades in the lawless world. George Miller's obsession with detail is what makes these vehicles so captivating. For Miller, the Mad Max world is not just about spectacle, it's about authenticity.
The idea is that Dementus takes what he wants. To show him growing, we couldn't just go to a four-wheel vehicle for him.
Because he's gathered so many people around of all different status, he needs more status.
I got a message from Morton Joe.
We had the last picture, which was Rictus's. So this time round, we took a tow truck, a military Mack, put the two together with the Pope's seat mounted at the back.
I drove monster truck in a show before I got my licence to drive on the roads. When we got to the shop and they gave us all the schematics and how they wanted to look with the Mack cab on it and stuff, we were just like, wow.
It obviously started off as a monster truck salon, reconfigured the cab and got it to go again.
The engine's based on a big block Chev, standard 454, probably around 800 horsepower.
The winch units, the steel, the double boom poles of these tow trucks are all fabricated to operate, actually tow, lift and move. Like everything else that George operates, we need to make them operate and make them real.
In interviews, he's explained how his background as a medical doctor informed his storytelling. He said, "In medicine, you're trained to observe everything, to understand cause and effect. The same discipline applies in filmmaking. Everything in the world of Mad Max has to make sense. It has to feel lived in." This philosophy extends to the vehicles, which Miller sees as living, breathing entities. He once said, "The vehicles in Mad Max are not props, they're performers. They're as much a part of the action as the actors themselves." This belief is why so much effort goes into building these machines practically, rather than relying on CGI.
The Valiant is basically our This was a slant 6 rather than a V8, jacked up and super turboed. It was always meant to be an escape vehicle. It's had most of the paint and Duco blown off it, but what is left is the colour of heart and love.
Furiosa, when she becomes this avenging figure, she needs a vehicle to represent that.
George, about halfway through the design process, started to work towards running these vehicles up sand dunes. And so suddenly motors that were mounted in the front were better set towards the rear and become mountain climbing. So this was the Chev hot rod with a rear-mounted turbo-aspirated V8.
When we started to design these vehicles, there was one school, and was mainly amongst the designers, that wanted this based on a muscle car. In Fury Road, we had a car called Elvis, which I loved, which again was a hot rod. So we basically solved it by Colin would develop both of them and build them. Whichever we finally chose, whichever fitted the story and the characters best, we'd use the other one as background, and that's what it was.
That definitely is muscle car. This is much more, for me, particularly going on a big set. If you look at the makeup on Scrotus, it almost looks like his car. And I just saw the footage that was done the other day. I'm very impressed.
We didn't take a vote on it, but finally at the end, it was clear that this fitted the story better.
The Black Dolly of Doom, used in a vehicle that I was hoping to be one of the main vehicles in the show, but was gazumped. If nothing else, I get to keep the steering wheel. I've offset the pain because I've already bet against myself.
All right, good, okay.
Just came down to character, and because she takes on the aggression, I think in the final beauty contest, that was the one that won the trophy.
Practical effects have always been a cornerstone of the Mad Max series. Miller has consistently pushed for real stunts and real vehicles because it grounds the action in reality. In Fury Road, nearly all the stunts were performed live, and the same approach was taken for Furiosa. The team worked tirelessly to ensure that every vehicle could not only drive, but also survive the intense demands of filming. One stunt coordinator described the process as engineering chaos. He explained that these vehicles aren't just meant to look dangerous, they have to function under extreme conditions. Whether it's a car flying through the air, smashing into another vehicle, or roaring through a sandstorm, every action sequence is meticulously planned and executed with precision. Miller's journey to create the Mad Max universe is as fascinating as the films themselves. He began his career in Australia as a medical doctor, but his passion for storytelling led him to filmmaking. The original Mad Max, made on a shoestring budget, became a global phenomenon, largely because of Miller's innovative approach to action and world building. Miller has said that he drew inspiration for the series from the energy crisis and societal tensions of the 1970s. The idea of a world running out of resources felt like a natural backdrop for a story about survival, he once remarked. This vision resonated with audiences, turning Mad Max into a cultural touchstone. Over the years, Miller continued to expand the world of Mad Max, exploring themes of survival, power, and humanity. Fury Road took those themes to new heights, winning 6 Academy Awards and being hailed as one of the greatest action films ever made. But Miller wasn't done. He knew there was more to explore, especially in Furiosa's character. Furiosa was always an enigma. Miller said in an interview, "I wanted to understand what made her who she is, what shaped her, what gave her that relentless drive to survive and fight back." That question became the foundation of Furiosa, which explores her origins and the events that forged her identity.
For me, action is the purest use of the film language. People are revealed by extreme situations. What the stowaway action sequence reveals is Furiosa getting, as someone said, an instant degree in being a warrior.
It's an action symphony, a rock and roll disaster with the help of 200 stunt people.
15 minutes, 197 shots in it. We've basically been shooting that now for 9 months.
She has no time to think about it. She's got to completely improvise under the most intense circumstances.
Anya Taylor-Joy took on the challenge of portraying a younger Furiosa with a level of dedication that impressed even George Miller. She underwent intense physical training, learning how to handle weapons and perform stunts, all while diving deep into the character's emotional journey. Miller praised her performance, saying Anya has a rare ability to bring vulnerability and strength to a role, which is exactly what Furiosa needed.
As Hitchcock said, all the work is done in the preparation of the film. The film itself is just execution.
Riding a motorcycle, how do you actually start doing combat on a tanker? I've always loved with action to be more than just two-dimensional, so we're in the air.
That's when we had the mortar-flyers becoming the mortar-flyers. They released parachutes and are pulled along behind the motorbikes.
They're throwing bombs on war boys who are defending this rig in the way they do.
And when that doesn't work, it was the idea of trying to escalate and build up that tension.
Furiosa has to take all the skills kind of half-formed to survive.
It culminates in a Zeppelin-style biker descending from the skies.
How do we make it look spectacular? And, you know, how not to kill everybody as we're doing it.
Get ready for the day, big day ahead of us.
It's going to be good. We're just starting out, doing probably what's going to be the largest shot in the film.
Yeah, I mean, we've done a lot of crazy stuff, but George Miller and Guy Norris with this movie, they're just pushing the boundaries of what's possible. I mean, this first scene that we're doing, it's one of the longest single shots I think I've ever worked on.
Ready here to there, that's it. Yep. Then ski up and then our normal in.
It's actually quite a hard shot. He'll jump off the back of my bike.
This wheel here, this actually controls his height. It's purely designed for fast-moving rigging.
There's our stuntman here. He'll be slingshotted up into the air like he's on a parachute, flying down the road at 50, 60 miles an hour.
You know what? I think we're all crazy doing this shit.
One of the great things about Fury Road and Furiosa, we do not defy the laws of gravity. Everything has to be technically believable.
And he falls back. And we go up. Oh, here it comes.
What you're seeing in the Mad Max world is what happens when real bodies do real body things.
First couple were really good. Yeah. The last couple, again, we got...
You know, at speed, different winds. It is dangerous. It shows. Props to Guy Norris leading the whole team along.
I think we got it, Guy. Yeah, that's good. He's kicking his legs and it's great. Thank you very much, Guy.
All right, mate. Thank you very much. Very happy for a great first day, and we just want the same for the next 110 or whatever it's going to be, and we'll all be in good shape.
The stuntmen, the vehicle drivers, the camera crew, the skill level of that is so high. The tools are always improving and evolving. But of course, where we start is very grounded. So for instance, there's a thing at the back of this war rig called the Bombing knocker.
The Bombing knocker, we've built it to the point that we can actually begin the spin, but we can't get it up to a high enough revolution per minute to make it the weapon that George imagines it to be.
The first instinct is to make something as real as possible.
Is he on a wire?
Yeah, he's connected.
To climb up on the seat. He goes like that and tries to climb up.
Rather than do a digital stunt, far better to do a real stunt as the basis of the shot. If it's unsafe to do flames, at least have some flames there. Then you can enhance everything around it digitally.
With Furiosa, George Miller once again proves he's a master of his craft. The film isn't just a prequel, it's a deeper exploration of the world of Mad Max and the characters who inhabit it.
You happy? Really?
Yeah? Okay, good.
I'd like to just try one or two more.
Through painstaking attention to detail, practical effects, and unforgettable performances, Miller has created yet another masterpiece that will leave audiences in awe. And at the heart of it all are the vehicles, those roaming, clanging, fire-breathing beasts that embody the spirit of the Wasteland. Because in the world of Mad Max, the road is life, and the vehicles are the soul of the journey.
Action sequences, they're not just very kinetic, entertaining events. Have to be about character. The stowaway action sequence reveals her as a warrior. That's what really got me into this story.